They say the worst betrayals don't come from enemies. They come from the people who smile at you across the dinner table and call you family. My name is Ethan Royce, and I'm 34 years old. I run a small but successful graphic design studio out of Seattle. It's not flashy, and it's not what my mother-in-law Marjorie would ever call real work. To her, real work meant numbers, law firms, corporate suits, predictable paychecks, not creativity, not independence, and definitely not me. When I married Samantha, her only daughter, I knew I was marrying into a family of legacy and expectations. What I didn't realize was just how far Marjorie would go to correct what she saw as her daughter's biggest mistake, me. It started with little things: cold remarks, subtle digs, awkward introductions at family events where I was just Sam's husband, or worse, the freelance guy. But the night she handed me a glass of champagne and said, "Here's to finally making better choices," I felt it, that tight pull in my chest. Something was coming. Something Marjorie had been planning for a long time. The first time I met Marjorie Whitmore, she greeted me with a handshake so cold, I half expected frostbite. Samantha had warned me. My mom's intense, don't take it personally. But it wasn't just intensity. It was calculation. She asked questions like she was conducting a background check. "And your parents?" "Still alive." "What did they do?" "You went to a state school. Interesting. Graphic design, is it? And people pay for that?" Samantha tried to smooth over the awkwardness. "He's booked 6 months out, Mom. Clients love his work." But the damage was done. Marjorie had already filed me under not good enough. Her husband, Paul, was quieter, a retired accountant who mostly stayed buried in his crossword puzzles. He wasn't cruel, but he wasn't kind either. He just nodded along complicit in silence. For a while, I tried harder. I offered free branding help for a charity gala Marjorie was chairing. She declined. "We're hiring professionals." I created a custom anniversary portrait for Paul and Marjorie, one of my best pieces. It ended up in their guest bathroom. Still, I told myself they'd come around. That love would win, that being good to Samantha was enough. I was wrong. It started getting weird after our engagement. Marjorie wanted a prenup, even though Samantha and I were financially equal. "She's just being practical," Sam had said. "Let's just do it." I agreed because I loved her, but I couldn't shake the feeling that Marjorie didn't want a contract. She wanted control. After the wedding, it got worse. We'd visit for Sunday brunch and find accidental double bookings, like Samantha's ex, Greg, a Harvard Law alum, just happening to stop by with his new fiancée while I was setting the table. Marjorie would coo Greg's done so well for himself. "You two used to be so cute together, remember?" Samantha would go quiet. I'd change the subject. Marjorie would smirk. But I let it go, because Samantha never stopped defending me, never gave me a reason to doubt her loyalty, until the night I found the tracking app. We were at their house for Marjorie's 60th birthday, a full production like she was hosting a black tie gala in her own home. String quartet chef in the kitchen, a rented champagne fountain. I had just returned from a business trip in Denver, exhausted but trying. Always trying. Samantha had begged me, just show up. Smile. For me. So I did. But something felt off. Marjorie was too nice. She greeted me with a double cheek kiss, told me I looked presentable, asked if I wanted a special glass of champagne, a thank you for finally stepping up. I watched her pour it herself in the kitchen. A subtle flick of her wrist. Something dropped in before the bubbles rose. Tiny. Dissolving. Gone before anyone could notice. Anyone but me. She turned and smiled. "Here's your reward, Ethan. A little something for my favorite son-in-law." I took the glass, My hands didn't shake. My smile didn't slip. I simply turned to Paul, her loyal, wordless husband, and said, "Paul, let me get you a fresh one. You've earned it more than me tonight." I swapped them easy as a card trick. Marjorie didn't even blink. 38 minutes later, Paul was pale and sweating. 45 in, he was vomiting into their marble sink, while Marjorie tried to claim shellfish allergy. Everyone else was fussing and apologizing. I was silent, and I watched her watching me as realization dawned. She knew I knew. But she didn't say a word, neither did I. I just put my glass untouched on the counter, picked up Samantha's coat, and said, "Let's get you home, babe. Your mom's party's gone cold." I didn't sleep that night. While Samantha curled into me, murmuring worries about her dad's sudden reaction, I stared at the ceiling with my heart thudding like a war drum. I knew what I'd seen. And worse, I knew what it meant. This wasn't just disdain. Marjorie had tried to neutralize me. Not kill, maybe, but remove, discredit, humiliate, ruin. And if I hadn't switched glasses. The next morning, I drove across town to Caleb Mitchell, a forensic consultant and former client of mine. I'd designed his firm's brand identity a year ago. Now I needed a favor. I need a chemical analysis. Glassware. No questions. He took one look at me, nodded, and took the bagged flute without a word. 3 days later, Ethan, that glass tested positive for lorazepam. Enough to drop a grown man in 20 minutes. More than a sedative. This was premeditated. I didn't tell Samantha. Not yet. Instead, I started looking. Through social media posts, town gossip forums, whispered exchanges at charity events. It wasn't hard to find 2 pharmacists who said Marjorie filled overlapping prescriptions under different variations of her name. A neighbor who claimed her jewelry went missing after a brunch party. A caterer who said Marjorie once asked him to accidentally spill wine on a guest's dress because she needed to be cut down to size. What disturbed me most, though, was what I found in our own house. Buried in Samantha's phone settings, a location-sharing app, Life Shadow, running silently in the background. It had been there for months, set up from Marjorie's cloud account. That night I sat across from my wife in the quiet of our kitchen. "Sam, has your mom ever made you feel like you had to choose between her and me?" She blinked at me, then looked down. "No. I mean, she just wants the best for me. What if what she wants isn't you, just some version she can control?" She didn't answer. Not yet. But something in her expression cracked. I knew I had to be patient, but I also had to act. So I planned a visit. Just Marjorie and me. Alone. Saturday afternoon. I arrived at her house with my camera bag slung over my shoulder, same as I always did when taking holiday photos or family portraits. She greeted me at the door like nothing had happened. "Ethan, dear, I didn't think you'd come alone. Just figured we could talk. And if you're up for it, grab a few headshots for your charity's new site." Her lips curled. "Of course. I'm so glad you're finally seeing the value of practical work." I smiled. So did she. But only one of us knew what was really going on. I guided her to a sunlit corner of her library. While she adjusted her blazer and smoothed her hair, I set up my tripod, not for photos, but to record everything. A wide-angle lens, discreetly angled. Audio synced to my watch. "Let's start with some warm-up shots," I said. Click, click. "You know, Marjorie, I've been thinking a lot about that dinner." Her eyes didn't flinch. "Dinner? You mean last week, oh, that unfortunate reaction your father-in-law had. Poor Henry. Must have been shellfish." I stepped closer, adjusted the lens. "See, that's the thing. The shellfish glass, the one you handed me, it wasn't mine." She paused. What are you insinuating? Nothing really. Just that I had it tested. Silence. Her fingers froze mid-button on her jacket. And the results were interesting. She stood straighter. Her voice turned brittle. You're treading dangerously close to accusing me of something, Ethan. Something criminal. I kept my tone neutral. I'm just trying to understand why someone would put lorazepam in a champagne flute. Her eyes narrowed. She stepped toward me. Because some men don't belong where they think they do. Because some men marry into families they're not good enough for. And sometimes a little clarity is necessary. There it was, the mask dropping. Clarity, I asked. Or control? She scoffed. Do you think I'd let my daughter throw her future away for someone like you? You're a phase, a rebellion, a placeholder. I didn't respond. I just pressed a small button on my phone. The feed stopped recording. Safely saved. Thank you, Marjorie, I said calmly, packing my gear. That's all I needed. Her expression twisted. You think this little stunt will scare me? I turned back as I reached the door. No, I think it'll terrify you. I didn't rush to show Sam what I'd recorded. I needed more than just a damning conversation. I needed a pattern, a history. Because people like Marjorie don't just snap, they plot. They build narratives over years. And I had a feeling I wasn't her first target. So I did what I do best. I started digging. Through Sam's old photo albums, I noticed the gradual disappearance of certain people, old friends, a college roommate named Chloe, an ex-boyfriend she never talked about. I reached out to Chloe on LinkedIn, asked for a call. She responded almost immediately. You're her husband? Chloe asked, then sighed. I miss her. We used to be inseparable. Why'd you two stop talking? Her mom, Chloe, said without missing a beat. She said I was a bad influence, that I was trying to pull Sam away from her roots. One day Sam just stopped calling. It wasn't just Chloe. I found Ian, the college boyfriend. He told me that Marjorie once emailed him under a fake account, pretending to be Sam breaking up with him. He only found out months later. By then, Sam had already been told Ian had cheated. She poisoned every relationship that didn't fit her vision, Ian told me bitterly. I didn't stand a chance. I compiled everything. The toxicology report. The security footage from Henry and Marjorie's own hallway cam, where she could be seen switching glasses. The recorded confession. Screenshots of fake emails to Ian. Statements from Chloe and others Marjorie had ghosted from Sam's life. Then I did something risky. I handed the entire file to Samantha. She came home from work exhausted. I asked her to sit. No theatrics. No build-up. Just truth. Sam, I said, placing a thick folder in front of her. You deserve to know what your mother's been doing. To us and to you. At first, she refused to look. Ethan, I can't. She's my mom. I know. But you'll want to see this. She opened the file. She read for 30 minutes without saying a word. Her hands trembled when she got to the printed email Ian had kept. Her face went pale when she heard the recording I'd made in the library. She said, I'm a phase, Sam whispered. I nodded. I kept hoping if I stayed calm, respectful, patient, they'd learn to accept me. But they never wanted to accept anyone. They wanted to replace me. She looked up at me, eyes fierce. We're going to end this. Sam wanted to do it face to face. Not a phone call, not a letter. She said if they're going to lie, I want to watch them squirm trying. So we invited them to dinner. Marjorie, Henry, and Sam's older brother Daniel, who had always played neutral. Too neutral. What they didn't know, I had 2 hidden cameras in the living room, and an audio recorder on the shelf. I didn't need it for blackmail. I needed it in case they ever tried to twist the truth. That night, Marjorie arrived with a cake, always performative. Henry wore a smug expression like he already knew we'd come crawling back. We let them talk, let them comment on the house, let them pretend nothing had happened. And when dinner wrapped up, Sam stood. "Before dessert, I have something to say." She looked straight at her mother. "I know what you did." "Excuse me," Marjorie said. "The drink Mom, the Xanax, the recordings, the emails you sent Ian, everything. The room turned ice cold. You've been trying to sabotage my marriage the same way you sabotaged my friendships and past relationships. And I'm done pretending I don't see it." Henry opened his mouth, but I cut him off. "There's security footage, toxicology results, eyewitnesses. I even recorded the little chat you had with me at the library. You recorded I did. You weren't exactly subtle. Neither of you." Daniel looked shocked. "Wait, what is happening?" "Your parents tried to drug me," I said calmly. "And when that failed, they planned to make Sam believe I was unreliable. Dangerous, even." That's insane," Henry muttered. Sam didn't raise her voice. "You tried to control my life because you didn't like who I loved. You destroyed friendships, ended relationships, and tried to poison my husband just so I'd come home." Marjorie finally snapped. "You were making a mistake. We only wanted what was best for you, what you wanted," Sam said. "Not me." She pulled out a small box and placed it on the table. Inside was a USB with everything we had: footage, reports, testimonies. "Keep this, watch it if you want. But know this, if you ever try to interfere again, this goes public. And you will lose not just us, but everyone who ever thought they knew you." Henry glared at me. "You think you've won? You think we'll just sit back while you poison our daughter against us?" I smiled. "You already did that all by yourselves." Daniel stood and walked out. He didn't say a word. And neither did Marjorie or Henry as we showed them the door. They knew. The era of polite silence was over. The days after that confrontation felt surreal, like waking up after a long illness and remembering what breathing freely felt like. We didn't hear from Marjorie or Henry for weeks. Not a single text. Not even a smear campaign, which honestly surprised both of us. But in their silence, we found something else. Peace. Daniel eventually reached out. Quietly, apologetically. I didn't know. I should have asked more questions. I thought keeping the peace was the same as being neutral. I was wrong. Sam didn't make him grovel. She told him he had to rebuild trust, and that trust came with action, not words. He agreed. Meanwhile, our life settled into something we hadn't experienced in a long time: normalcy. We worked. We laughed more. We didn't flinch every time the phone rang. There were no backhanded comments over dinner or subtle digs at my career. We started thinking about the future, about family. Sam got accepted to a public health fellowship in Oregon. I had an offer to do a book of environmental portraits and stories. We were planning a life, finally, on our own terms. Then, about 6 months later, a letter arrived. It was from Marjorie. Handwritten. No dramatic envelope, no scented paper. Just ink, anger, and desperation. "You've made your point. But cutting your parents out of your life forever? That's cruel. We only did what we thought was necessary. We wanted better for you than a starving artist and a rented house in a no-name town. But if you must hate us to be happy, then so be it." Sam stared at it for a long time before folding it once and throwing it in the trash. "It's not even an apology," she said. "It's not even about you," I added. That was the last we heard from them. A year later, we bought our first home outside Portland. Not a mansion, not even fancy, but it had light space and a backyard full of wildflowers. When our daughter was born, Ivy June, we didn't tell Marjorie or Henry. We didn't send a birth announcement. We didn't invite them to visit. We didn't owe them that. Instead, we took portraits filled with warmth and wonder. I printed them, framed them, and hung them all through our home. Ivy's first smile. Sam holding her under the trees. Me feeding her with bleary eyes at 2 a.m. This was the family we had built. Not with pressure, not with poison, but with love, boundaries, and truth. One evening, Sam stood holding Ivy against her chest, rocking gently by the window. She turned to me and whispered, "Do you think they ever really loved me? Or just the version of me they could control?" I walked over, kissed her forehead, and said, "Maybe they don't know the difference, but we do." She nodded, tears glinting, but not from sadness, from clarity. That night I took one last photo, a quiet moment. Ivy asleep in Sam's arms, the sun dipping behind the trees. And I captioned it, "We didn't just survive them. We became better because of them. Not thanks to their love, but in spite of it. Because sometimes the most powerful revenge is building the life they swore you never could."